The last few days saw the gathering of G7. 7 of the top countries, presidents and prime ministers getting together in France to talk about a lot of issues, including Brexit. Now, the highlight of the event was the encounter that Boris Johnson had with Emmanuel Macron and a number of other leaders when it comes to the issue of Brexit. It all started with the French President Macron, who repeated what he has been saying since June. As the leaders met to discuss Brexit, obviously Boris Johnson came prepared to propose a complete change to Theresa May's deal, not only with the backstop, but also the £39 billion Brexit Bill. But President Macron, just like what he said back in June, has said that the UK failing to pay the Brexit bill would amount to a sovereign debt default. And you can guess what Boris Johnson did. When asked if he had told EU leaders this week that he planned to withhold their money, Mr. Johnson told Sky News that, "I think what the entire European Union understands is that if we come out without a deal, then the £39 billion is no longer legally pledged. As I've said many times, we will therefore, on the 1st of November, have the very substantial sums available from that £39 billion to spend on supporting our farmers and indeed for investment in all sorts of areas." Now, Boris's hard no when it comes to the £39 billion didn't really go down with the EU fanatics. The Irish politician Senator Richmond said that there is a massive lack of understanding in the UK on what the Brexit bill actually is. It's not a punishment payment, it's a settling of accounts based on programs the UK has already benefited from, like CAP, Erasmus, Horizon 2020, and not to mention pensions for British citizens. But also the deputy director of the pro-EU think tank British Influence criticised the Prime Minister for saying that the UK won't pay the divorce bill. He said on Twitter that the UK has already agreed to the sum. He doesn't seem to be happy that apparently we're telling the world that we're not going to continue with our commitments. And again, he's repeating the whole default on our deadline. Now, the beauty of this weekend was that since then, every time Boris Johnson was asked about this, he just repeated his answer. He said, "I've already said no. I'm not going to come up with an excuse or justification. A no is a no." But we've had other Conservatives coming to his defence. The Tory MEP Dan Hannan has mocked the Remainers' comments, asking why would we want to pay what we don't owe. He said that the UK has never accepted this sum as a liability, and he's absolutely right. He continued by saying that, what does it say to the world that some British Remainers are so unbalanced that they are now want to pay what we don't owe? And I guess this is the whole problem, because not many people know where this £39 billion sum came from. The whole aspects of the divorce bill and the financial settlements is not something that was properly and legally and financially calculated. This is why initially the European Union came and said, okay, you owe us £100 billion. This is a negotiated sum by both parties. And let's not forget that the UK has been the net contributor to the EU budget since the establishment of the European Union. So if anything, they owe us something. The House of Lords has already found that our legal balance of obligation amounts to zero. There's nothing to see here. This is all political and we know it. But that wasn't it. As I said, obviously G7 included 7 of the prime ministers and presidents of countries from across the world with an extra guest. I don't know who invited him, but he was there. Now let's have a look at the leaders. Surely it's G7, so we should have 7, but we have 8. We have an unexpected guest, number 5. Who is that? It's our close friend Donald Tusk, the President of the European Council. Again, I have no idea why he was there, because if he's representing the European countries, then, but firstly it's G7, so it's about Germany, France and the UK. And we already had leaders from Germany, France and the UK present. Why are you there? But secondly, he decided to hit back at Boris Johnson's comments, not just on the financial settlements, but also no deal in general.
The one thing I will not cooperate on is no deal. And I still hope that Prime Minister Johnson will not like to go down in history as Mr. No Deal. We are willing to listen to ideas that are operational, realistic and acceptable to all member states, including Ireland. if and when the UK government is ready to put them on the table. Thank you.
Really? I mean, I'm going to repeat the same thing that I've said many times, and if you guys seen my videos before, you know I'm going to repeat the same thing. Firstly, No Deal Brexit is default, and we all voted for it anyway. Secondly, if anyone wants to blame someone for a no deal scenario, it's the European Union's fault. You created this mess, it's your fault. But just imagine how sad the situation is right now that the opposition leaders of this country, Jeremy Corbyn, leader of the Labour Party, and Jo Swinson, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, have decided to take the side of our opponents. Yes, both Jeremy Corbyn and Jo Swinson have defended the European Union, Macron and Donald Tusk on their stance when it comes to Brexit, instead of taking the side of Britain. Well, I'm not surprised personally. They are so desperate to survive, and they're so desperate to come up with any plan to stop Brexit. And as I said recently when I was talking to Talk Radio's Mike Graham, they don't really have any plans. That's what all their focus is on, this vote of no confidence that might happen at some point in September.
Yeah, it does, because what I can't understand is how much longer. I think they're in the kind of death throes, some of these MPs, because they know that this is their final throw of the dice, that they know as soon as there's a general election, an awful lot of them are going to be out of a job. Sarah Wollaston for one, Dominic Green probably for two, and all sorts of other people who have betrayed their constituents. And they know that this is really their kind of final last chance saloon drink, and that's why they're playing up so much. And they are absolutely getting as close to breaking point for me in terms of our, confidence in them as they can get. As far as the future goes, and as far as the makeup of Parliament goes, it doesn't seem to me that anybody can stop what it is that Boris Johnson wants to do. And I'm now more and more convinced that, it is going to be a no-deal Brexit because there isn't anybody else who can sort that out.
No, we would have known by now. If they had anything in terms of planning, the Remain MPs and Bercow, we would have known. They would have announced it somehow. They would have planned it. But because they're going completely with no confidence planning, that means they've got nothing up their sleeves.
Right.
So
there is this weird court case which we haven't really examined properly, which has been launched in Scotland, only because apparently the Scottish courts stay open during the summer.
Yeah.
And so they've filed a sort of submission there, and there's going to be some kind of hearing on September the 6th, right?
But it's still timing. They don't have the timing behind them. So by the time that finishes, we've left. So
yeah. So I mean, it's basically they've been stitched up like kippers, which is quite amusing to watch. And also, what is very funny to watch for me is the kind of hysterical Remainers who are just literally, they don't know what to do. No. They're flapping around almost as if they know the game is done, and they're just going to have to try and keep making as much noise as possible to seem relevant. But they don't seem very relevant anymore.
No, I'm going to miss them, but
Yeah, oh well, perhaps we'll see them again at the next time there is a referendum. We shall see.
Yeah, and just to sum up, we don't legally owe anything to the European Union. In fact, as a net contributor, they should owe us something. And two, Donald Tusk shouldn't have been invited to G7. He's not an elected leader of any country. 3, Jeremy Corbyn and Jo Swinson. Really? How hard is it that for once that you take the side of your own country? And finally, French President Macron and his two-faced mentality, going around behind Boris's back saying all those comments, and every time he sees Boris in person, obviously he's like, oh, we're best friends. I didn't say that. No, I didn't mean those comments. Let's work something out. Seriously. But don't worry guys, Brexit is coming soon and Remainers are running out of time. So share this video so that they know the truth. And as always, if you want to follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram is here. If you want to support the channel, you could become a member of the Cabinet Club. The link is in the description. And as always, don't forget to subscribe and click on the notification bell next to it, because otherwise you won't be notified if a new video is coming out. And I'll see you tomorrow with a new video.